Episode 105, The Great Reset, Global Elite Plan, or Economic Recovery Framework. Welcome back to the Conspiracy Theory Analyst. I'm Robin. In June 2020, with the world deep in the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Economic Forum launched an initiative called the Great Reset. Its stated purpose was to rebuild the global economy in a fairer, more sustainable, and more resilient way after the disruption of the pandemic. Its founder, Klaus Schwab, co-authored a book with the same title. The initiative's website described it as an opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. Within weeks, the phrase Great Reset had been extracted from its context and become something else entirely. By the end of 2020, the Great Reset conspiracy theory had spread to millions of people across dozens of countries. In its conspiracy framing, the initiative was not an economic recovery plan, but a blueprint for a global totalitarian takeover, a scheme by unelected elites to use the pandemic as cover for abolishing private property, ending national sovereignty, installing a surveillance state, and engineering a new world order in which, as the theory's most famous formulation puts it, you will own nothing and be happy. Tonight we examine both versions, the actual Great Reset initiative and the conspiracy theory it spawned, and ask where the line between legitimate concern and unfounded alarm actually falls. Detailed explanation: the World Economic Forum is a real and influential institution. Founded by Klaus Schwab in 1971, it holds its annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, drawing heads of state, central bankers, Fortune 500 CEOs, and senior international officials every January. Its stated mission is improving the state of the world. Its actual function, critics and supporters alike acknowledge, is a networking and agenda-setting forum for the most powerful people on Earth. The Great Reset Initiative, launched in June 2020, had three components. The first was rebuilding economies more equitably, addressing the widening inequality that the pandemic had exposed and accelerated. The second was ensuring that investments advance shared goals, particularly around climate, technology, and social equity. The third was harnessing the innovations of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Schwab's term for the convergence of digital, biological, and physical technologies, for public good. The phrase "you will own nothing and be happy" did not appear in Schwab's Great Reset book. It came from a 2016 WEF promotional video featuring 8 predictions for 2030, one of which imagined a future in which people would own fewer physical objects and rent more services. The video was speculative and aspirational, not prescriptive. But extracted from context and shared without framing, it became the most powerful single piece of evidence in the conspiracy theory's arsenal. Naomi Klein, the left-wing author and journalist, who is herself a fierce critic of corporate power, described the Great Reset conspiracy theory as a conspiracy smoothie, a narrative that absorbed other theories and adapted to different national contexts, while maintaining a core claim about Schwab and the WEF orchestrating global control. Core elements of the theory: the first element is stakeholder capitalism. Schwab has advocated for decades for a model of capitalism in which corporations take responsibility not just for shareholders, but for all stakeholders, employees, communities, the environment, and society at large. In a 1999 Forbes interview, he said the sovereign state has become obsolete and called for a global issue alliance to solve major problems. Critics of the Great Reset conspiracy point to this as genuinely concerning language. Not evidence of a secret plot, but evidence of a powerful individual who believes in governance structures that bypass democratic accountability. Defenders argue stakeholder capitalism is simply responsible business practice. The second element is the pandemic timing. The Great Reset was launched at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Schwab himself described the pandemic as a rare but narrow window of opportunity. For conspiracy believers, this framing, treating a global health crisis as an opportunity, is evidence that powerful elites welcomed or engineered the pandemic as a mechanism for implementing their agenda. For defenders, it reflects the pragmatic recognition that major crises create political conditions for major change. The third element is the Young Global Leaders Program. The WEF has for decades run a program identifying and cultivating what it calls young global leaders, promising figures from politics, business, and civil society who receive WEF mentoring and networking. Schwab has publicly stated that he is proud to have penetrated the cabinets of multiple world leaders through this program, naming Justin Trudeau and Emmanuel Macron among others. For conspiracy believers, this statement confirms the WEF's reach into government. For defenders, it describes a networking program whose alumni happen to have entered politics. The fourth element is the 2030 Agenda alignment. The WEF's Great Reset agenda overlaps significantly with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, an alignment that believers take as evidence of coordinated global planning by unaccountable institutions. Critics of the conspiracy theory note that overlap between the world's largest economic forum and the UN's development agenda is to be expected and does not constitute secret coordination. Evidence for and against the evidence for the Great Reset as a legitimate economic recovery initiative is the initiative itself, publicly documented, openly published, and entirely transparent about its goals. The book exists, the initiative's website exists, and every major element of what the WEF actually proposed can be read by anyone. No secret documents, hidden agendas, or classified materials are required to understand what the Great Reset actually says. The evidence for the conspiracy framing is more circumstantial, but not entirely without substance. The WEF does bring together the world's most powerful people in a forum that operates without democratic accountability. Schwab's language about penetrating cabinets and seizing pandemic windows is genuinely unusual for the head of what is nominally a conference organization. The Young Global Leaders program does represent a form of elite cultivation that operates outside normal political channels. The specific claims that are fabricated, including a widely shared fake quote attributing a depopulation agenda to Schwab's book, confirmed as false by the WEF itself, demonstrate that the conspiracy theory has been deliberately amplified with invented evidence layered on top of genuine concerns. Arguments in favor of concerned critics who are not conspiracy theorists, including Naomi Klein and other left-wing analysts, have argued that the Great Reset, even stripped of its conspiracy framing, represents a troubling attempt by unelected corporate power to position itself as the solution to crises it helped create. The WEF's vision of stakeholder capitalism, they argue, is capitalism managing its own consequences in ways that preclude more fundamental democratic reform. The forum's self-appointed role in reshaping global governance, articulated openly in Schwab's 600-page Global Redesign Initiative, drafted after the 2008 financial crisis, raises real questions about accountability and legitimacy. These are serious critiques that deserve engagement. They are not the same as claiming that Schwab is engineering depopulation. Arguments against the conspiracy framing the specific claims of the Great Reset conspiracy theory, that the pandemic was engineered, that property will be abolished, that a totalitarian world government is being installed, have no supporting evidence. The fake Schwab quotes have been identified and debunked. The "you will own nothing" prediction was speculative and has not materialized. The pandemic did not produce the totalitarian takeover the theory predicted. Researchers who study extremism have noted that the Great Reset conspiracy has been used as a gateway to more extreme ideologies, including anti-Semitism, and has motivated real-world violence. The neo-fascist Forza Nuova group cited the Great Reset as justification for violent anti-vaccination protests in Rome in 2021. Public opinion and broader impact, the Great Reset conspiracy became, in the space of a few months in 2020, one of the most rapidly spreading conspiracy theories in modern history. Its reach was facilitated by the social media dynamics discussed in episode 67, emotionally charged content spreading faster than corrections, algorithmic amplification of outrage, and the collapse of trust in institutions that made dramatic alternative explanations feel credible. Its persistence reflects genuine anxieties about inequality, about corporate power, about the unaccountable influence of organizations like the WEF, that the conspiracy theory redirects from structural analysis toward a personalized villain narrative. Conclusion: the Great Reset, Global Elite Plan, or Economic Recovery Framework. It is both and neither in different senses. The actual initiative is a publicly documented economic agenda produced by a powerful and largely unaccountable forum. The conspiracy theory version, totalitarian takeover, engineered pandemic, abolish property, is not supported by evidence and has been amplified with fabricated materials. For believers, the WEF's own words, penetrating cabinets, seizing windows of opportunity, sovereign states becoming obsolete, are confirmation enough. For those who read those words in context, they describe an influential institution with an inflated sense of its own importance, rather than a hidden government. What is certain is this: the World Economic Forum is real, it is powerful, and it is unaccountable. Whether that makes it dangerous depends on what you believe power without accountability tends to produce. This is the Conspiracy Theory Analyst. I'm Robin. If tonight's episode made you think, please rate and follow on Spotify. Tomorrow on the Conspiracy Theory Analyst, is tap water being used to mass medicate populations? That's next.